Welcome to EDPS Talks, an exclusive series produced by the European Data Protection Supervisor as part of its initiatives to celebrate the institution's 20 years of protecting personal data. The Talks aims to gathering leading voices from all around the world to share their unique perspectives on data protection and privacy and how these shape their respective fields. In today's talk, it's an honor to discuss these topics with our guest, Professor Daniel J. Solove. Daniel Solove is a renowned expert in privacy law, holding the Eugene L. and Barbara A. Bernard Professorship at George Washington University Law School. He is known for his academic research and popular books exploring the intersections of technology and privacy. Professor Solove has authored numerous books and more than 100 law review articles. He founded TeachPrivacy, a privacy training company. Professor Solove is a leading voice in promoting understanding and protecting privacy in the digital age. As part of his promotion activities, he is frequently invited to speak at conferences and in the media, including the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal. Thank you, Professor Solove, for joining us today, and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
We start with a personal question. Since you have extensively written about privacy, what does privacy mean to you, and how do you apply it in your everyday life?
So I think privacy is a fundamental value. It's really essential for protecting individuals and for society. In terms of my own life, I don't do a lot. I use all sorts of technologies, from a smart doorbell to smart lights, to home assistant devices, to AI, and so on. And I do so because I have a view that there's not a whole lot the individual can really do to protect their privacy. And despite what the laws provide people with a set of rights. The GDPR has the most robust set of rights, and then laws in the United States are starting to pass protect people with a more limited set of rights. But I actually don't think that these rights and exercising these rights really enables an individual to protect privacy. So I think it's almost like a bit like arranging deck chairs on the Titanic. It's incredibly hard for an individual at an individual level to make informed decisions about privacy. Even experts. I've studied privacy for about 25 years. It's very hard for me to figure out and make a good risk calculation about whether I should share information on Facebook about a trip I'm going on. Should I post photos about my trip? Should I post a photo of myself on LinkedIn or my bio on LinkedIn? Should I use a smart doorbell? These are really difficult things that I don't think individuals are really able to make this kind of risk calculation. And that's ultimately what I think individuals need to do to protect their privacy. They need to be able to assess how much will sharing this information potentially harm me, what's the risk, and then what's the benefit. And the benefits are pretty easy with technology. There are all sorts of really neat things technology can do. But the risks are much, much harder to assess. And it's really hard for an individual to assess it. So when I'm trying to assess that, let's say I wanted to assess, okay, what is the risk or the danger to share information with a particular company? Well, I would need to have a conversation with the data protection officer so that I would learn what does their privacy program look like. Just because they say it in their statement that they love privacy and care doesn't mean that their program is any good. So I'd want to talk to and really understand what they do. I'd want to talk to the security officer. What kind of security? They say they give reasonable security, but what is that? How good is their training? If their training isn't good, all the good policies in the world don't mean anything if employees don't know what they're supposed to do with data. So I need to see the training. Is it effective? What is the what are their contracts look like with vendors that are having their data, with third parties that get their data? What kind of protections does a website have against scraping? How strong are their protections? If I post my information there, will it be scraped up by some other company? Uh, and then the uses. Am I supposed to figure out if they take my data, combine it with other data, and then in the future reveal information I didn't expect to be revealed, which is how modern data analytics works, how AI works these days. How am I going to figure that out? I might say, hey, I'm going to give this piece of data. I'll give my photo. I'll tell them about some purchases I made. Here's a few books I like. And I think, okay, I'm just giving them a little bit of information about myself. But then some AI algorithm infers all sorts of sensitive data about me. So how am I to know this unless I have a lengthy conversation with the data scientists at the company? I need to analyze the algorithm, but I also need to analyze all the data constantly inputted into the algorithm and that the algorithm is trained on, and then how the algorithm evolves so that I can really understand what it's inferring about me. So I could go on, but this is the kind of information I need to know if I'm going to make a meaningful risk calculation about my data. And I don't think that's really possible for even me to do, let alone an individual who doesn't know as much about privacy.
Thank you, Professor Solove. I understand that it is, and I agree, in fact, that it is much easier to see the advantages and the benefits than the risks and the threats that come from the processing of personal data. In your books, you often refer to the impact of dissemination of information online. Lately, technologies such as generative AI systems make ample use of this available online information. What is the impact of these technologies, of this trend, on the privacy of individuals and society? What are the implications of the use of artificial intelligence for our democracies, particularly if we consider how they are used in the social media?
I think the implications are really staggering because when you give out information, normally you think, okay, this is the information that I'm sharing, and you have a sense of, okay, this is the risk that I have. If you know, okay, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, and you have some control with okay, what I am giving out. But what we see today is that that's largely gone. That the information that is being collected about people is information that they don't realize that they're giving out. It's information that they slough off throughout the day as they go about everyday transactions. And the minutia of every little facet of our lives is now being gathered extensively online and through various technologies. And so this massive data gathering on an unprecedented scale is happening today. And then to add another incredibly complicated and problematic layer to it, the data analytics that are being put on this information, and this is AI. AI today, it actually it's a rebrand for technologies that have been developing for the last 50 to 70 years. And this it's called AI, but it's really not sentient robots. It's machine learning algorithms, which are algorithms that work really well when you put a ton of data into them. And so this massive amount of data is fed into these algorithms. And the more data that goes into the algorithms, the better the algorithms can figure out patterns. It looks for similar patterns among different people to then uh, figure out inferences about people. So when I am doing things like just going to the supermarket and buying some items, or I, uh, you know, surf a few websites, and it can combine this data to reveal other information about me. And this is information that I don't expect to be known to these companies, but that's what the algorithms are doing. They are essentially finding out and generating information about people that they don't expect to be generated. And so it becomes incredibly difficult, actually, probably impossible for an individual now to really manage what information they're exposing to a company. And so I'll give an anecdote about this. So this actually is about a 10-year-old anecdote, actually a little more than 10 years. So in the United States, a store, a general store, uh, big store chain, decided that they wanted to identify pregnant women in the early stages of their pregnancy. And they wanted to do this so they could market to them baby products. They figured this out by analyzing their shopping patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And what they discovered, what this algorithm discovered, was a pattern. And the pattern, the key things in the pattern were that if they bought cotton balls and unscented products, they likely were pregnant. And the algorithm actually was pretty good at detecting this. Uh, this story broke it was on the front page of the New York Times. It was a big story. It got a lot of attention, and this company got a lot of criticism that they were being really creepy for doing this. But this is exactly how these algorithms work. This is just a classic case. And what it illustrates is that the kinds of data that could give rise to an inference about a lot of sensitive information, and pregnancy is a health issue, and that's sensitive data. But the data that gave rise to an inference about health was rather non-sensitive, rather innocuous. Hey, I just bought, a couple items in the store. So this is really difficult. When people go and buy these items, now they're revealing sensitive health data that they don't expect to be revealing. And it's really hard for anyone, without really knowing exactly what the algorithms are going to do, and figure out, how do you manage that? And how does that work with existing privacy law? It's really hard because, okay, I have a right to delete, but I don't know what data to delete. How do I know, unless I know what the algorithm is going to figure out, that I should delete information about these purchases, and so on. So it becomes incredibly hard with the existing model that we have of privacy law, and incredibly hard for an individual to really manage the information that is being collected, used, and gathered by companies. And this was just an example where this data was used to make a decision about whether or not to send them an advertisement. Mm-hmm. In fact, actually, in this case, what made this even worse was that this father went into the store and he complained, and he said, "Hey, my teenage daughter is getting all these baby product ads, and I don't understand why. This is outrageous." And the store said, "Well, it's because we think that she's pregnant." And he was outraged, but ultimately she was pregnant, just hadn't told him yet. So that's just marketing and the potential harms from that. But imagine, you don't have to imagine, today, very important decisions are being made about people based on their data. Decisions about whether people should be hired, whether people should get a loan, and how much the interest should be charged. decisions, the algorithms are being used in sentencing decisions. Will someone be a recidivist? Will someone commit crimes in the future? And if so, then the sentence is longer, or should someone be let out on pretrial detention? All of these decisions, educational decisions, should someone be admitted to a school or not? Is someone going to be successful in school? They're going to drop out. All of these things are now being decided more and more with the use of these algorithms, and all this data that people are giving off are being used for these decisions, and people are not really able to know what those implications are. And so people say, "Oh, I just went and bought cotton balls and unscented products, and now suddenly I'm denied a loan, or
Mhm.
I don't get a job." That's really problematic in my view.
Mhm. I remember this example because some years ago I was giving trainings on data protection and technologies, big data among them, and I remember speaking to the people coming to the trainings about this example to give them a glimpse on the things that you could do if you process enough quantities of data to infer patterns. That's a really nice example, and it's also true that the health example is the health data inference. It's a good example, but if you apply that to political ideas or to political inclinations, it's also very scary, as you mentioned. In one of your interviews 10 years ago, you said that privacy is about power. Does it still hold? How does the lack of privacy affect individuals and society and the balance, the balance of power between citizens and the state? What advice would you give to people to protect themselves?
So I think the power is both the individual versus the state, and also the individual versus large companies, because both the government as well as large companies are exercising tremendous amounts of power over the individuals. And I think that privacy is dramatically implicated in these power relationships. And When you have the ability to gather so much personal data about people, and then analyze it and use it in various ways that are making important decisions, determinations in people's lives, you have power over them. And that power increases the more you know about them. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing this unprecedented amount of data gathering from both the government is gathering it, and companies are gathering it. And oftentimes what we see is companies are gathering it, and then the government is buying it or accessing it from those companies. So the problems kind of work in tandem. And As a result, I think the individual is increasingly less and less powerful, and is more vulnerable to all sorts of downstream potential harms and risks that are going to happen. The individual goes and about their lives and buys things and does things, and all these things could potentially be collected and used uh, in ways that could lead to decisions that are harmful to them. Uh, and there's very little individuals can do about it. And that's a problem, I think, a very big problem, because it means that individuals are increasingly helpless and powerless to protect themselves, or to control their reputations, or to have a say in these decisions. If I start doing things, and some company is gathering this information, and then they're going to analyze it and use it to make a decision about me, where's my say in this process? I don't even know what is being gathered. One thing, if someone says, we're going to make a decision about you, so we will tell us a little bit about yourself, and I can control what I'm telling them, and I give them a little bit of information, and they make a decision. But now Uh, they've got all this stuff. They're finding out all this stuff that I don't know, and have it's almost impossible for me to have any modicum of control or knowledge about all this. And then they're making these decisions about me uh, that are kind of unexpected, and like, why did I get denied this loan? And the law will say, hey, we'll give you some disclosure about the reasons, but I think it's too little too late. And we're seeing this happen on just such a massive scale, and then with the government doing it too. And people are sentenced for longer because of something that an algorithm has spotted, that it says they're more likely to commit a crime in the future. But the problem with that is that calculation, it's not like it's looking in a crystal ball. It's making a prediction about someone. It's actually based on data about other people. And so there's another aspect of privacy that the law needs to deal with better. Is a lot of these predictions are made based on what other people have done, and then it matches you to what other people have done.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, people are being sentenced longer because other people have committed crimes and things other people have done, and yet an individual is punished more because of what they have done and because they match that pattern. I think that there's something fundamentally wrong about that. That a decision about an individual is now made based on not their own actions and their own individual traits and characteristics and things that who they are, but it's made on other people based on someone's prediction of what they might do. And that's something that people can't disprove. How do you disprove that some point in your life you're going to commit a crime? And unless you live out your whole life and say, on your deathbed, you can say, see, I didn't commit a crime. But otherwise, you can't disprove it. I think that's very troubling.
It reverses the burden of proof. So the system first assumes that past behaviors will be reflected in the future, and then you need to prove that that's not true, that you are not going to behave as other people behave, and that's, in my view, reversing the burden of proving you are innocent or guilty. As an academic, you have the chance to interact with the so-called digital natives. How do you perceive their relationship with technology? In comparison with the previous generations, are they more aware of their privacy risks or less?
I often hear it said that, oh, young people don't care about privacy. They're giving away all their data online, and they're signing up for all these social media websites, and they just don't care. And I think that this is actually wrong, very wrong. If you look at polls, young people will say they do care about privacy. But then why are they sharing so much information? People will ask. Doesn't this show? It's like there's a term for this called the privacy paradox. And I wrote a whole article about this. The privacy paradox is this term to capture when people say, I love privacy, I really care about my privacy, but then they do actions that seemingly give away their privacy, that expose their data. They use social media when they say they like privacy. I actually think this is not a paradox. I think that the argument that people's behavior and sharing data means they don't care about privacy is wrong. And that's because I think it's almost impossible these days to not share a lot of data. Ultimately, for digital natives, they're growing up with these technologies. Everybody is using these technologies. It's really hard not to use them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
so
you really think it's probably.
So you think that consciously or unconsciously they came to the same conclusion that you reached, and you explained at the beginning of this interview that there is little they can do to protect their privacy, and therefore it's not that they don't care about it; it's that they gave up.
Exactly. I mean, can you really imagine not using a smartphone today, or not using a computer, or not using the internet? For careers, you're just going to not use LinkedIn. the tools that we have are the tools that we have, and it's incredibly difficult to not use technologies when everyone else is using them, and it's also difficult because I also think they have a different. There's a more modern understanding of privacy than some of the antiquated understandings. The antiquated understandings of privacy are that, okay, if you share information, it's not private anymore. The only way you keep information private is to keep it secret, and you lock yourself up away as a hermit on a hill. Cut off the internet, don't use technology, and just live as a hermit on the hill. Now you have privacy. And I think that young people in a modern world with technology, I think, realize that it's about boundaries of information flow. You use a website like Meta, and you set your privacy settings on the site. You say, hey, I want some friends to see this, but I don't want the whole world to see this, or I want to share my information on LinkedIn for a particular purpose. I want to share it for career purposes, but that doesn't mean that I'm sharing it for any purpose whatsoever. So I think it's a problem that AI companies will scrape LinkedIn and grab my information, my photo, to put in a facial recognition AI. I think that's wrong, and I think that just because I put my photo up there does not mean I cede my privacy. So there's two factors going on. One is I don't think there's much of a choice or a meaningful choice to do this. So it's kind of like when do we say that someone who has no money and is starving, that they want to be hungry? No, they don't really have a choice. And the same with privacy. I think it's really, you can't avoid sharing so much information. And then on top of that, I do think, though, that when people share information, it's not an all or nothing binary. They're sharing it for purposes, and we need to protect them against certain uses. Just like when, a movie studio shares their movie and puts it out on the internet, that the law doesn't say, oh, okay, it's out on the internet, so therefore we can't protect the copyright. Anyone can just take the video and just do whatever they want with it. We know the law says, hey, we're going to protect that. They put it out there for a purpose, and that they still have, the data, that movie can only be used in certain ways, and we're going to protect it. And I think the same goes with people's data, that we need to respect the way people are sharing it.
Mm-hmm. It's a pity that so many online services, they don't make easy to have your privacy settings. So the privacy by default is not, let's say, as popular as we would like. So I see, and I think that you have also said that during the interview, that there is a lot of burden on the users of the services. So they can do something, but sometimes too much burden is set on them, or at least that's the impression I get. Before we wrap up, let's talk about the future of privacy. What do you think will be the main privacy challenge for consolidated democracies in 20 years? So now you can use your crystal ball and try to guess what's going to be of us in 20 years.
Well, we go back into the past 20 years ago. I wrote a book called The Digital Person: Technology and Privacy in the Digital Age. And I said, and I warned, I thought that the biggest challenge to privacy was going to be, the mass aggregation of personal data, and the powerlessness of the individual in light of how powerful the government and companies are going to get when they can collect this data and analyze this data and make inferences on this data. And you might think, well, wait a second, that sounds like, oh, you have the book. Awesome.
Yes, we do.
You might think that sounds like something I could have written today. And in fact, I am going to say, ditto. Like, the fact is that a lot of the problems, even 20 years ago, are still the problem today. that we're dealing with the mass collection and use of data. The difference between today and 20 years ago is that computers are faster and more powerful. There's more storage of information, and there's also the algorithms to analyze this data are stronger and have developed, and they're more sophisticated. But all of those problems that have been going on then are still going on today, and I think will happen in 20 years. So I'm not sure. It looks like magic, like I'm looking in a crystal ball, and I think that it's not. These have been long-standing problems. It does not. I don't think my predictive powers are amazing. I think that if you look at the trend, it's pretty clear what is happening, which is we're going to see more and stronger computing power, greater abilities to gather and store even more data and collect more data, and then even more powerful data analytics. And so we're kind of on the slope, we're on the path to this privacy dystopia, and we've been on this path. And I think despite the fact that the law has certainly valiantly tried to combat this, I mean, I think the GDPR is a wonderful law, so I commend it. However, it's not enough. And I think that we need I think a more radical intervention to stem this tide, to do something about this. So while I think the law has been, for law, it's pretty remarkable how much law has been passed and the legal response. The law has moved fast for the law. I mean, it's like sprinting for a tortoise. But a lot more has to be done if we're going to really combat this problem.
Mm-hmm. We are almost at the end. Let me first thank you, Professor Solove. It was a pleasure to listen to your insights. You shed light on many relevant issues, and I very much liked your views about the future of or the lack of future of privacy, and it was very interesting to hear your concerns about how feasible it is to protect our privacy as individuals. And I very much would like to thank you again being with us here.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks also to our listeners for watching this episode of the EDPS 20 Talk series. As always, we invite you to follow our activities celebrating the EDPS 20th anniversary on our dedicated website and on social media. This episode will also soon be available as a podcast on Spotify. My name is Xavier Lareo. Stay tuned for the next episode.